Chapter 8. I'm going to do this just like I do in class, so there will be some mistakes. The nurses wouldn't let us see Johnny. He was in critical condition. No visitors. But Two-Bit wouldn't take no for an answer. That was his buddy in there, and we aimed to see him. We both begged and pleaded, but we were getting nowhere until the doctor found out what was going on. "Let him go in," he said to the nurse. "He's been asking for them. It can't hurt now." Two-Bit didn't notice the expression in his voice. "It's true," I thought numbly. "He is dying." We went in, practically on tiptoe, because the quietness of the hospital scared us. Johnny was lying still, with his eyes closed, but when Two-Bit said, "Hey, Johnny kid," he opened them, looked at us, and trying to grin, said, "Hey, y'all." The nurse, who was pulling the shades open, smiled and said, "Oh, so he can talk after all." Two-Bit looked around. They treating you okay, kid?" "Don't," Johnny gasped. "Don't let me put enough grease in my hair." "Oh, don't talk," Two-Bit said, pulling up a chair. "Just listen. We'll bring you some hair grease next time. We're having the big rumble tonight." Johnny's huge black eyes widened a little, but he didn't say anything. "It's too bad you and Dally can't be in it. It's the first big rumble we've had, not counting the time we whipped the shepherd's outfit." "He came by," Johnny said. "Tim Shepherd?" Johnny nodded. "Yeah, came to see Dally." Tim and Dallas had always been buddies. "Did you know you got your name in the paper for being a hero?" Johnny almost grinned, and he nodded. "Tough enough." He managed to say this, but by the way his eyes were glowing, I figured those southern gentlemen had nothing on Johnny Cade. I could see that even a few words were tiring him out. He was pale as the pillow, and he looked awful. Two-Bit just pretended not to notice. "Hey, you want anything besides the hair grease, kid?" Johnny barely nodded. "The book." He looked at me. "Can you get me another one?" Two-Bit looked at me. I hadn't told him about Gone with the Wind. He wants a copy of Gone with the Wind so I can read it to him," I explained. "Do you want to run down to the drugstore and get one?" "Okay," Two-Bit said cheerfully. "Don't y'all run off now." I sat down in Two-Bit's chair and tried to think of something to say. Dally's gonna be okay," I said finally. "And, Derry and me, we're okay now." I knew Johnny understood what I meant. We had always been close buddies, and those lonely days in the church had strengthened our friendship. He tried to smile again, and then suddenly went white and closed his eyes tight. "Johnny!" I said, alarmed. Are you okay?" He nodded, keeping his eyes closed. "Yeah, just hurts sometimes. I usually don't. I can't feel anything below the middle of my back." He lay breathing heavily for a moment. "I'm pretty bad off, ain't I, Pony?" You'll be okay," I said with fake cheerfulness. "You gotta be. We couldn't get along without you." The truth of that last statement hit me. We couldn't get along without him. We needed Johnny as much as he needed the gang, and for the same reason. "I won't be able to walk again." Johnny started and then faltered. "Not even on crutches. Busted my back." "You'll be okay," I repeated firmly. "Don't start crying," I commanded myself. "Do not start crying or you'll scare Johnny." "You want to know something, Pony Boy? I'm scared stiff. I used to talk about killing myself." He drew a quivering breath. "I don't want to die now. It ain't long enough. 16 years ain't long enough. I wouldn't mind it so much if there wasn't so much stuff I ain't done yet and so many things I ain't seen. It's not fair. You know that That time we were in Windrixville was the only time I've ever been away from our neighborhood. You ain't gonna die, I said, trying to hold my voice down. And don't you get juiced up, 'cause that doc won't let us see you no more if you do. 16 years on the streets, you can learn a lot, but all the wrong things, not the things you want to learn. 16 years on the streets, and you see a lot, but all the wrong sights, not the sights you want to see. Johnny closed his eyes and rested quietly for a minute. Years of living on the East Side teaches you how to shut off your emotions, and if you don't, you would explode. You just learn how to cool it. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Johnny," she said quietly, "your mother's here to see you." Johnny opened his eyes, and at first they were wide with surprise, and then they darkened. "I don't want to see her," he said firmly. "She's your mother." "I said I don't want to see her." His voice was rising. "She's probably come to tell me about all the trouble I'm causing her and how glad her and the old man will be once I'm dead. Well, tell her to leave me alone for once." His voice broke. "Just for once? Tell her to leave me alone." He went to sit up. He suddenly gasped, went whiter than the pillowcase, and passed out cold. The nurse hurried me out of the door. I was afraid of something like this if he saw anybody. I ran into Two-Bit, who was coming in. "You can't see him now," the nurse said, so Two-Bit handed her the book. "Make sure he can see it when he comes round." She took it and closed the door behind her. Two-Bit stood and looked at the door a long time. "I wish it was any one of us except Johnny," Two-Bit said. His voice was serious for once. "We could get along without anybody but Johnny." Then, turning abruptly, he said, "Let's go see Dallas." After he walked out into the hall, we saw Johnny's mother. I knew her. She was a little woman with straight black hair and big black eyes like Johnny's. But that was as far as the resemblance went. Johnny Cake's eyes were fearful and sensitive, and hers were cheap and hard. And as we passed her, she was saying, "But I have the right to see him. He's my son. After all this trouble his father and I have gone through to raise him. And this is our reward? He'd rather see those no-count hoodlums than his own folks." She saw us and gave us such a look of hatred that I almost backed up. "It was your fault, always running around in the middle of the night getting jailed and heaven knows what else." I thought she was going to cuss us out. I really did. Two-Bit's eyes got narrow, and I was afraid he was going to start something. I don't like to hear a woman get sworn at, even if she deserves it. "No wonder he hates your guts," Two-Bit snapped. He was going to tell her off real good, but I shoved him along. I felt sick. No wonder Johnny didn't want to see her. No wonder he stayed overnight at Two-Bit's or our house and slept in the vacant lot in good weather. I remembered my mother. She was beautiful and golden like soda, and wise and firm like dairy. "Oh, Lordy!" There was a catch in Two-Bit's voice, and he was closer to tears than I'd ever seen him. "He has to live with that?" We hurried to the elevator to get to the next floor. I hoped the nurse would have enough sense not to let Johnny's mother see him. It would kill him. Dally was arguing with one of the nurses when we came in, and he grinned at us. "Oh man, am I glad to see you. These hospital people won't let me smoke, and I want out." We sat down, grinning at each other. Dally was his usual mean, ornery self. He was okay. "Hey, Shepard came to see me a while ago." "Oh, that's what Johnny said. What did he want?" "He said he saw my picture in the paper and he couldn't believe it didn't have 'wanted, dead or alive' under it. He mostly came to rub it in about the Rumble. Man, I hate not being in on that." It was only last week that Tim Shepard had cracked 3 of Dally's ribs. But Dally and Tim Shepard had always been buddies, no matter how they fought. They were 2 of a kind, and they knew it. Dally was grinning at me. Oh, kid, you scared the devil out of me the other day. I thought I'd killed you. Me? I said, puzzled. Why? Oh, well, when you jumped out of the church, I meant to hit you just hard enough to knock you down and put out the fire, but you dropped like a ton of lead, and I thought I'd aimed too high and broke your neck. He thought for a minute. I'm glad I didn't, though. I'll bet, I said with a grin. I had never liked Dally, but then for the first time, I felt like he was my buddy, and all because he was glad he hadn't killed me. Dally looked out the window. Hey, he sounded very casual. How's the kid? We just left him, Two-Bit said, and I could see he was debating whether to tell Dally the truth or not. I don't know about stuff like this, but he seemed pretty bad to me. He passed out cold before we left him. Dally's jawline went white as he swore between clenched teeth. Hey, Two-Bit, you still got that fancy black-handled switch? Yeah? Well, give it here. Two-Bit reached into his back pocket for his prized possession. It was a jet-handled switchblade, 10 inches long, that would flash open at a mere breath. It was the reward of 2 hours of walking aimlessly around a hardware store to divert suspicion. He kept it razor sharp. As far as I knew, he had never pulled it on anyone. He used his plain pocket knife when he needed a blade. But it was his showpiece, his pride and joy. And every time we ran into a new hood, he pulled it off and showed it off. Dally knew how much that knife meant to Two-Bit. And if he needed a blade bad enough to ask for it, well, he needed a blade. That was all there was to it. So Two-Bit handed it over to Dally without a moment's hesitation. "We've got to win this fight tonight," Dally said. His voice was hard. "Gotta get even with those Socs for Johnny." He put the switch under his pillow and lay back, staring at the ceiling. We left. We knew better than to talk to Dally when his eyes were blazing and he was in a mood like that. We decided to catch a bus home. I didn't feel much like walking or trying to hitch a ride. Two-Bit left me sitting on the bench at the bus stop while he went to the gas station to buy some cigarettes. I was kind of sick to my stomach and sort of groggy. I was nearly asleep when I felt someone's hand on my forehead. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Two-Bit was looking down at me worriedly. "You feel okay? You're awful hot." "I'm all right," I said. And when he looked at me as if he didn't believe me, I got a little panicky. Don't tell Derry, okay? Come on, Two-Bit, be a buddy. I'll be well by tonight. I'll take a bunch of aspirins." "All right," Two-Bit said reluctantly. "But Derry will kill me if you're really sick and you go ahead and fight anyway." "I'm okay," I said, getting a little angry. "And if you keep your mouth shut, Derry won't know a thing." "You know something?" Two-Bit said as we were on the bus home. "You'd think you could get away with murder living with your big brother and all, but Derry's stricter with you than your folks were, ain't he?" "Yeah," I said, "but they had raised 2 boys before me. Derry hasn't." "You know, the only thing that keeps Derry from being a Soc is us." "I know," I said. I had known it for a very long time. In spite of not having much money, the only reason Derry couldn't be a Soc was us, the gang. Me and Soda. Derry was too smart to be a greaser. I don't know how I knew, I just did, and I was kind of sorry. I was silent most of the way home. I was thinking about the rumble. I had a sick feeling in my stomach, and it wasn't from being ill. It was the same kind of helplessness I'd felt the night Derry had yelled at me for going to sleep in the lot. I had that same deathly fear that something was going to happen that none of us could stop. As we got off the bus, I finally said it. "Tonight, I don't like it one bit." Two-Bit pretended not to understand. I never knew you to play chicken in a rumble before, not even when you was a little kid." I knew he was trying to make me mad, but I took the bait anyway. Hey, I ain't chicken, Two-Bit Matthews, and you know it. Ain't I, Curtis? Same as soda and dairy. Two-Bit couldn't deny this, so I went on. I mean, I got an awful feeling. Something's gonna happen. Well, something is gonna happen. We're gonna stomp the Socia's guts, that's what. Two-Bit knew what I meant, but he pretended not to. He seemed to feel that if you said something was all right, it immediately was, no matter what. He'd been that way all his life, and I don't expect he'll change. Soda Pop would have understood, and he would have tried to figure it out with me. But Two-Bit just ain't soda. Not by a long shot. Cherry Valence was sitting in her Corvette by the vacant lot when we came by. Her long hair was pinned up, and in the daylight, she was even better looking. Oh, that Stingray was one tough car. It was bright red, too. Oh, it was cool. Hey, Pony Boy, she said. Hi, Two-Bit. Two-Bit stopped. Apparently, Cherry had shown up there before during the week Johnny and I had spent in Windrixville. What's up with the big times? She tightened the strings on her ski jacket. They play fair. No weapons. Fair deal, your rules. You're sure? She nodded. Yep, Randy told me, and he knows for sure. Two-Bit turned and started home. Hey, thanks, Cherry. Hey, Pony Boy, just wait a minute, Cherry said, and I stopped and went back to her car. Randy's not going to show up at the Rumble. Yeah, I said. I know. He's not scared. He's just sick of fighting. You know, Bob. She swallowed and then went on. Bob was his best buddy since grade school. I thought of Soda and Steve. What if one of them saw the other killed? Would that make them stop fighting? No. I thought maybe it would make Soda stop, but not Steve. He'd go on hating and fighting. Maybe that's what Bob would have done if it had been Randy instead of him. So, how's Johnny? Not good, I said. Will you go up and see him? She shook her head. No, I couldn't. Why not? I demanded. It was the least she could do. It was her boyfriend that had caused this all. And then I stopped. Her boyfriend. I couldn't, she said again in a quiet, desperate voice. He killed Bob. Oh, maybe Bob asked for it. I mean, I know he did, but I could never look the person who killed him. You only knew his bad side. He could be sweet sometimes and friendly, but when he got drunk, it was that part of him that beat up Johnny. I knew it was Bob when you told me the story. He was so proud of his rings. Why do people sell liquor to boys? Why? I know there's a law against it, but kids get it anyway. I can't go see Johnny. I know I'm too young to be in love and all of that, but Bob was something special. He wasn't just any boy. He had something that made people follow him, something that marked him as different, maybe a little better than the crowd. Do you know what I mean? I did. Cherry saw those same things in Dallas. That was why she was afraid to see him, afraid of loving him. I knew what she meant, all right. But she also meant she wouldn't go see Johnny because he had killed Bob. That's okay, I said sharply. It wasn't Johnny's fault that Bob was a booze hound. And Cherry went for the boys who were bound for trouble. I wouldn't want you to see him. You're a traitor to your own kind and not loyal to us. Do you think your spying for us makes up for the fact that you're sitting there in a Corvette while my brother drops out of school to get a job? Don't ever feel sorry for us. And don't you ever try to give us handouts and then feel high and mighty about it. I started to turn and walk off, but something in Cherry's face made me stop. I was ashamed. I can't stand to see girls cry. She wasn't crying yet, but she was close to it. I wasn't trying to give you charity, Pony Boy. I only wanted to help. I liked you from the start. The way you talked. You're a nice kid, Pony Boy. Do you realize how scarce nice kids are nowadays? Wouldn't you try to help me if you could? I would. I'd help her and Randy both if I could. Hey, I said suddenly. Can you see the sunset real good from the west side? She blinked, startled, and then she smiled. Real good. You can see it good from the east side too, I said quietly. Thanks, Pony Boy. She smiled through her tears. You dig, okay? She had nice green eyes. I went on, walking slowly home.